This episode includes conversations about sexuality and other adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Dating while Black already means navigating a world that misreads our bodies. But when you add a physical disability, the barriers multiply. Black disabled people face ableism that questions their desirability, fetishization that reduces them to objects, and a higher risk of harm. More than 1 in 4 women in the U.S. have a disability, and women with disabilities experience intimate partner violence at significantly higher rates than women without them. Nearly 1/3 of Black adults report a disability-related health condition, which shows how widespread this issue really is. And disabled people overall are 3 times more likely to experience sexual violence than non-disabled people. But here's the part people don't expect. In kink and BDSM communities, which are often treated as taboo for Black and disabled folks, many Black disabled women actually find affirmation. These are spaces where consent is explicit, boundaries are negotiated, and access needs are normalized. In a world that too often denies their autonomy, these structures can offer safety, agency, and control. It raises a real question about why comprehensive sexual education isn't more accessible in Black and disabled communities, and how much harm happens when people aren't given the tools to navigate intimacy with safety and confidence. We know the problem. Now let's get to the root of it. I'm Paris Alston, and this is Rooted. What do disability and kink have in common? Nila Morton knows a little bit about that. She's a disability and kink advocate who told us she had to learn early on that her body and her boundaries deserve respect. Her experience shows why these conversations matter for everyone. What encouraged you to get into the kink space?
Yes, so what really started it was because on Twitter, I'm known as your favorite disabled hottie. I've been having that platform since I've been about 20 years old. I started it when I was an undergrad to talk about the inaccessibility on college campuses. And then it just blew up from there. And I just started talking about different types of issues that relate to disabilities. And I started to share more about my personal experience, especially around when it comes to sex and disability. I would share my personal experiences. And then I was bullied really badly. A lot of people were talking real bad about me. They really felt like as a disabled person that I shouldn't be having sex, or that it's wrong, or that it's disgusting. And that really led to me to be able to connect with people who are in the kink space. They started to reach out and send their support. And I remember one of my friends had went to a play party. And a play party is like a party where a lot of people who are in the kink community come together and they do different types of scenes and things. And so I was like, oh, wow, I'm really interested. And she said, I feel like this would be really good for you. So she sent me an invite to a play party, and I attended, and I had a great time. But what really made it an amazing experience for me was how welcoming people were. They didn't see me as a disabled woman. They didn't see me as something that was like disgusting, weird, or like an alien. They actually just saw me as a woman, as a person. And that allowed me to feel more comfortable in my body as a disabled woman.
And had you ever felt that way before?
No, I never really have. And the reason why is because there's not a lot of representation when it comes to sex and disability. A lot of the time people think that disabled people aren't sexual beings. And while I do have a mom who always advocated for me and also taught me that just because I'm disabled doesn't mean I can't experience certain things in life. But it's different when you outside the home and you into the world and people are just telling you what you can't do, what you shouldn't do. And there's not a lot of people, like, even like on movies and shows when they have sex scenes, you never really see a disabled person participating. And so it makes it seem like being disabled means that you can't be a sexual being, even though it's part of everybody's nature.
And what does this look like for youth? Because I know that you work with young people through a nonprofit, but I imagine that there wasn't a lot of sex education for individuals like yourself growing up.
Yes. So I remember when I was younger, It was around the 5th grade. That's when they were starting to introduce sex education. And I remember a teacher was like, hey, you don't have to be here. It's not necessary for you to be here. And I was thinking like people just had options. So I remember going home, telling my mom about it, because I always tell my mom about my day at school. And I seen like a concerned look on my mom's face. And she was like, She said, who told you this? So I told her who was the teacher and everything. And she called the school and she told them like, hey, that's wrong. And I didn't know she did that behind my back. I just remember her saying, hey, you do need to go to these classes. It's very important for you to go. So make sure that you go. And right when I went to school, everything was fine. I went to the classes. And then when I came home and I told her about it, she was like, the reason why I wanted you to go is because, yes, I can teach you certain things, but it's very, very important for you to attend these classes so you can understand your body better. And she was like, they wasn't trying to let you go because they felt like since you're disabled that it wasn't important. And my mom said, I want you to understand that it is important because you need to understand yourself, and also be able to identify your body parts and be able to understand what's going on with your body as you get older. And each year, my mom would always have to talk with me. And when I got older, I realized that this was a common experience for a lot of disabled people, being excluded from sex education, not realizing the damage that it causes when disabled people aren't able to participate.
And I imagine that extends to consent as well, right? Would you say that it's true that disabled individuals get taken advantage of more when it comes to sex?
Yes, it's actually a lot of research and statistics around it. Unfortunately, because there are a lot of disabled people who aren't given that talk, whether that's from schools or their parents or whoever, that they don't really have a lot of knowledge about consent, about being able to advocate for themselves when they are having sex. Something that I noticed even for myself as I was navigating desirability and disability for myself is that it's hard to identify what feels good and what doesn't. And that a lot of disabled people don't really know that, sex is whatever that they can define for them. But because we aren't a part of the conversation or nobody wants to talk to us, we don't know. So we just going in there blindly and then being harmed. And then the thing is, the people that we are having sex with, they are aware that we don't know. And instead of, being a guide or just being patient, they take advantage of it. And then we're like, in this space, not realizing that we may have just been sexually assaulted or just taken advantage of. And I think with the kink community, that helped me is like understanding that consent is big and that you deserve to feel safe, but not only feel safe, but also you deserve pleasure. And that's another thing, like when people take advantage of disabled people when it comes to sex, is that a lot of disabled people don't really get anything out of it. Like they feel like it hurts. People aren't really patient because as a disabled person, sex, you have to be creative. And it requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of time. And unfortunately, people don't really offer that. And so we get into this space where we're uncomfortable and it can make sex feel very traumatizing. And it's sad because sex should be fun, not traumatizing.
Yeah, but I think it's an experience, no matter how someone may be abled or not, right? I think a lot of people can relate to those feelings of discomfort, right? And those feelings of not really knowing how to speak up for themselves. I also want to talk a little bit about intimate partner violence because I know that studies have shown that disabled individuals are more likely to experience intimate partner violence. This is also true for Black women. And Nila, you're at the intersection of those two things. So how do you navigate that?
Yes, so I would say being a Black disabled woman has really opened up a lot of unique experiences, especially around like relationships and things like that. Something that I have noticed as a Black woman, like it's a lot of people love to say that Black women aren't desirable and that we're aggressive and things like that. And something I noticed, a lot of people aren't really as patient with me, especially when it comes to romantic relationships, especially sexual relationships. I know those people aren't as patient with me. They feel like I like things rough, and that's just not necessarily true. And being a Black disabled woman, just the disability of it all, like a lot of the time people see me more as a fetish as well. And so they feel like it's like I'm a checklist, if that makes sense. Like they need to check off, like, oh, I had sex with a disabled woman. And because they have this idea of like, oh, she can't feel down there, they feel like they can do any and everything. And it's like, no, I'm still human. Yes, I can feel down there, but even if I couldn't, why are you trying to put me in a position where you can overpower me? And that's something I noticed, that is always like this power dynamic as I have navigated romantic relationships and sexual relationships. A lot of people like the idea of having power over a disabled person. And sometimes it can be hard to date because I never want someone to look at me like I'm a weak target or like I'm easy or anything. I actually want people to see me as a human being. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people that don't see me that way, and they don't really see a lot of disabled people that way. And it can be hard to date because I don't know people's intentions. And unfortunately, that's a lot of experiences for not only disabled people, but also for Black women.
Do you find that you attract a lot of Black men, or are you having to date outside your race and be more adventurous when you're trying to get the pleasure you want?
I would say I have attracted a lot more Black men. There are a good amount of Black men in the kink space. I was shocked about that because I never really see them be open about it. I see more Black women be a little bit more open about being a kinkster, but not really Black men. But going to the parties, I have noticed there are a lot of Black men who are kinksters. So I always find myself being able to play with them. And I'm glad because, like, I do prefer Black men because it's just our cultures, we have something in common. And also being in that space, because I would say most of the time the spaces that I have been like mostly Black people, and being around, my people, it is more empowering because a lot of people would see what we do as like something wrong, something negative, or just weird. But we all in that space where we all trying to define pleasure for ourselves and define sex for ourselves through exploring. And I just think it's very beautiful.
It does sound like you mentioned earlier, the kink space is helping you have that discernment and putting you in touch with people who hopefully have the best of intentions when interacting with you. I'm curious, Nila, tell me more about like the benefits of being disabled in the kink space. Like what's the sexiest thing about it?
Oh yeah, so what I love about being disabled in the kink space is the fact that I'm able to define pleasure for myself and define what sex is. I talked about it one time on TikTok where I said the kink community and the disability community intersects a lot because a lot of people learn sex through the heteronormative able-bodied view of what sex is, which is like, oh, you have a man and a woman, and then they do missionary, and that's it. And it's like, no, like sex isn't always just that. It's not like a one-size-fits-all. It's whatever a person defines for themselves. And that's something that I learned in the kink space is like, I don't always have to do penetrative sex just to feel pleasure. Like, it's other things that I can do. Like, it's other things that I can explore that I find pleasurable. And it makes me feel safe because I'm able to explore my wants, my desires, as well as discover what I don't like, being able to speak up for myself. And that's something that I really appreciate being in the kink space, especially attending play parties. It's like being able to learn how to advocate for myself, or being able to learn how to trust. And also another thing, because as a Black woman, I'm very dominant in my personal life all the time. Like, I'm having, like, even in my relationships, a lot of people don't really feel like I deserve that, fairy tale, like being treated like a princess. I end up being in a very dominant role in my relationships. So being in the kink space, I'm able to like let that go and understand that it's okay to be in more of a submissive role. And like, it's not taking away my power. Honestly, it's making me more empowered and realize that I don't always have to be strong. I don't always have to put on this mask. I can just be. And I just think that's one of the most sexiest thing about it, but also just feeling safe. I think that's the big thing. Being able to feel safe to explore my sexuality and not feel shame from it, and actually have people who want to participate in helping me with that.
And it sounds like that's something that, again, people of all different abilities can learn from. I mean, what would you say could be the bridge, whether it's by way of the kink space or through another mechanism, the bridge between this freedom that you're describing and the lack of freedom that may exist in other people's sex lives?
Yeah, so I would say like being open-minded. I feel like whenever I tell people that I'm a kinkster, they just freak out and be like, "Oh my God, like what are you doing?" But I try to let them understand that it's not, you don't have to be a kinkster to have this type of freedom. You have to just be open-minded and basically just take that power back that people have taken from you when it comes to your sexuality. I feel like we live in a world where people always shame, especially Black women, like they always shame Black women for being liberated and being sexually free. But honestly, like, I honestly think that's one of the most beautiful things, to be able to want to have sex whenever you want to, or to be able to like define sex for yourself, or just being able to just be free. And I think when people actually understand that, not only that, but like sex is normal. Like it's a part of human experience. I mean, we all got here somehow. So like,
Right.
it's like sex is normal and it's okay. And I think once we start trying to make it seem like it's such a shameful thing, I feel like a lot of people will actually be more okay with having sex, but not only that, but loving their bodies. Because that's another thing that I learned through this journey, is being able to learn and embrace my body. Because like being in a play party, you are a little exposed in front of a lot of people.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. But in that space, you learn how to embrace that and embrace all parts of yourself, the parts of yourself that you feel insecure about, the parts of yourself that you thought no one would ever find attractive, and you realize like, actually I am beautiful no matter what stage my body is in. And so I think just people being willing to be open-minded, I feel like that would help a lot of people who at that stage where they don't feel as free, or they feel ashamed, or they feel like it's best to just be private instead of just being open.
Now, you've talked about the desirability that other people have for Black women or for disabled individuals, but what about that desirability for yourself? I mean, how do you get past those unaffirming messages and signals you may get out in the world, but bring it back inside and learn to really, understand your own sexuality?
Yes, so I would say it has taken some time. I always tell people, like, I didn't think I was a disabled hottie, like, when I first was born. But I would say, after experiencing a lot of ableism, and also colorism and just racism from the world, something that I realized is that, one, I always say Black women are the blueprint. And I'm like,
Period.
and I'm glad that part. And I'm like, I'm a Black woman. So that means I'm also the blueprint. Yes, I'm disabled, but that doesn't mean that I'm not beautiful. And that's something I would always tell myself every day, even after a bad relationship, or I would get rejected or anything. I would say, like, my disability does not mean that I'm ugly. My disability does not mean that I'm not beautiful. I am beautiful. But I also would say to myself that God created me this way, and that she did her big one. So it's best to embrace that instead of allowing the world to try to make me feel bad about myself. Like, it does sucks to always hear when people on the internet say, oh, Black women aren't desirable, that we all these negative things. But I really try not to listen to that, because a lot of the time it's just them projecting. It's just them being negative, and it's also them trying to make it seem like Black women are the issue, because a lot of the things that they're listing about Black women, there's also other race of women that have those qualities as well. So it's like, I really just, try not to listen to them. But as a disabled woman, I always find it more important to not allow ableism to impact how I see myself, because I feel like that's very important, and making sure that I'm staying confident, and also just staying in a positive mindset. There are days where I have my moments, because we are human, we all have our moments, but there's moments when I'm like, okay, girl, yes, you're disabled, but that doesn't mean that you're dead. So you just get up, put on your best fit, put the makeup on, because at the end of the day, you're still beautiful.
So, Nila, for the person who's hearing this and you sold them on it, right? But they're like, I don't know how the hell I get to a kink space, and what exactly am I supposed to do when I get there? What's some advice you would give them?
I would say, first, that's Google. Google is the main thing. Also, there's a lot of information out there. At first, I didn't know, but after connecting with my friend and she sent me the invite, and all I did was just follow the organization, I saw there was a whole bunch of other organizations following each other. And plus, you just look around in your area. It's this website called FetLife, and there's a lot of people who post about different play parties and different community, different events that's going on. And so you can just always look through there. And I will always also say, when you attend your first play party, don't feel like you have to do something. I feel like that first time is a good way to observe and just, learn from the experience, be able to learn more about yourself. And also, it's okay if that's just not for you, but don't feel ashamed if you get there and things just don't go according to plan, because a lot of people have this idea oh, I want this to happen, I want that to happen, and it don't always go like that. Sometimes you just have to go in with an open mind and just be willing to see how the night goes, because it usually happens at night. You see how the night goes, but also never feel like you have to do something. Consent is big in the kink community. Don't ever feel like you need to jump into action. It takes some people a few parties before they do that, and that's okay. It's all about learning.
Well, we have learned so much from you, Nila. Whatever abilities any person has, I think there's a lot of stuff that they can take away from what you've shared. So thank you so very much. Thanks so much to Nila Morton for sharing her insights and experience with us. Conversations like these remind us how much more there is to understand about dating, sexuality, autonomy, and care in our communities. Stay tuned to Rooted for more stories that help us see the world a little more clearly.